Hi, my name is Zing Dawt and I'm a writer for One Step at a Time. Today I'll be reading my story for you. One Step at a Time. Learning a new language is hard enough, but with the addition of mass mandate and transition to in-person learning, the process can be even more difficult. According to EL Department Head Amy Petty, due to these variables, the EL department has been struggling to keep a student engaged and learning in school. Sometimes we misunderstand each other, said Petty, and sometimes I don't think they hear exactly what I say. English is not everyone's first language. At SHS, there are so many various languages and cultures that are presented throughout the school, and learning a new language can be particularly difficult when everyone wears a mask. Petty faces conflict when trying to find ways to help her student. She wants to keep the mask on in order to keep her students safe and healthy, but it is harder when her students can't read her lips for pronunciation. Therefore, Petty tries her best to make it easier for her students to have a healthy yet productive learning environment for her students. She does this by taking the time to explain, repeat, and using closed captions on videos when needed. When the whole school went virtual during the pandemic, it was a lot harder than in-person teaching since distance had made it more difficult to not only teach but also view the students' progress. It was also a challenge for students. Many of them barely spoke English and did not have a secure access to the internet. Being introduced to online classes and learning how to use websites like Google Meet was a confusing progress. Having kids in school is better than trying to do things at home, Petty said. I feel like this year, even though it's been frustrating, it's been good that we are back in the same room together. Sophomore Julian Yafasa is currently an EL student in Petty's class. Although she strongly feels that masks are hindering her learning, she knows that it is necessary for her safety. Sometimes I feel like I can't breathe, Yafasa said, and we can't wish. We should not wear masks because it keeps us safe. Yafasa also struggles to hear how the teacher is speaking. She wishes she was able to have someone that spoke the same language as her, to translate or to better demonstrate the lessons that are being taught. From online learning to in-person, Yafasa sees a major difference in her progress. She feels that she is performing better in person than she did online. Freshman David Lian in Petty's class also feels that masks are beneficial to one's health, but not when trying to learn. I like having both online and in person, Lian said. If we have a question in person, we can ask the teacher, but online, it is harder. To help kids that are struggling while learning English, Petty encourages people to speak slowly, repeat things when students ask them to, and to be aware that it is difficult for EL students to communicate when they can't see their face. EL teacher Hoffman Longton has been teaching for 10 years. He teaches the 4th level of EL. He feels that students are having difficulties in getting back to the norms in school. With my students, most of them seem a lot more withdrawn, Longton said, like they are not ready to engage in class. Longton also agrees with the idea that masks makes it tougher to teach and for students to learn. From online to in-school, Longton sees a drastic decrease in the progress of his students. When classes were online, his students focused more on the writing portion than the speaking. Children are not moving up quickly and not learning as much, Longton said. The online work last year allowed them to simply not have to speak. Some of his students are quiet and soft-spoken. With the mask and being back in person, Longton noticed that his students are having a harder time speaking out even more and actively participating in class. Upon seeing how students are being more frequently less active in class, Longton approaches this issue by having students engage in more topics that have a much higher interest, like reading about a murder case. This seems to grab their attention and make them more interested in being involved in discussions. Although there are hardships along the way, Longton also sees the accomplishments that they were able to achieve. In several of his classes, he sees how students are doing exceptionally well in the reading assignments. Students have done very well, Longton said. I have several kids that are focused and have been successful. Different groups of students are more heavily affected by not seeing their teacher's face than others. For English language learners, since their whole concept is about pronunciation and distinguishing different words, it is more difficult to obtain and engage in lessons. It feels very overwhelming, but learning to take everything one step at a time is really important, said Petty. Introducing online classes was a new